Hello and welcome to this lesson about editorial cartoons. First, we're going to start off by taking a look at what an editorial cartoon is. Then we're going to take a look at some of the key features that all editorial cartoons contain. Then we'll move on to look at a specific editorial cartoon, and we'll use that specific editorial cartoon to complete the cartoon analysis worksheet as a class. So let's first begin by addressing the question, what is an editorial cartoon? An editorial cartoon is a visual expression of the cartoonist's opinion about a particular topic or issue. Now that we have a description about what an editorial cartoon is, we need to take a look at some of the key features that editorial cartoons contain. Editorial cartoonists expect the viewer to have some prior knowledge about the event being presented or the topic being addressed. So you will have to have some background information about the editorial cartoons that you are looking at. Another feature in editorial cartoons is that editorial cartoons use symbolism to convey the cartoonist's viewpoint. Unlike regular cartoons, editorial cartoons rely heavily upon symbolic expression. For example, some symbols may be universally understood, such as Uncle Sam symbolizes the United States, a donkey symbolizes the Democratic Party, an elephant symbolizes the Republican Party. These are symbols that are universally found throughout many different cartoons. Now, there are other examples of symbolism within cartoons that we'll begin to take a look at that are more specific, but just be aware that some forms of symbolism are universally understood. You can also expect to see that the cartoonist may use symbols in the form of exaggeration, such as large objects representing power, small objects representing weakness. And finally, another key feature that you need to be looking for in all editorial cartoons would be that the cartoonist may also use words or dates or numbers to help you piece together the overall message of the cartoon. So in review, an editorial cartoon is simply the cartoonist's opinion about a particular topic or issue that you need to have some prior knowledge about the event or the topic being addressed in the cartoon. You need to recognize that editorial cartoons maintain symbolism and that those symbols sometimes are universally understood, such as the Uncle Sam symbol of the United States, the donkey symbolizing the Democratic Party, the elephant symbolizing the Republican Party. That objects or people being symbolized may take on exaggerated features, such as large figures or objects symbolize power, small objects or figures symbolize weakness, and then finally the cartoonist may use words or dates or numbers to help you piece together the overall message of the cartoon. So now that we've gone through some of the basics about what an editorial cartoon is, I want to take a look at this specific editorial cartoon. So in front of you, you should have an editorial cartoon analysis worksheet, which should look exactly like this editorial cartoon analysis worksheet. Now, before we begin filling in the editorial cartoon analysis worksheet, I want to take an overview look at how the worksheet is set up. So you should notice that the left-hand column labeled Visuals is going to deal with questions that all address the visual aspects of the cartoon. So question number 1, question number 5, and question number 6 will all address the visual aspects seen in the cartoon. The right-hand column labeled Words will all address the written words that are located in or outside of the cartoon. So questions 2, 3, 4, and 7 will all deal with the written word aspect of the cartoon. And then finally, you look at questions number 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to be looking at the message of the cartoon, the groups that may agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message, whether you would agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message, and then finally, how it's connected to the essential question for the theme that we're looking at. Let's begin by taking a look at question number 1. It says, list in general terms all the objects and or people that appear in the cartoon. So if we take a look at our cartoon, we'll notice there's a number of individuals in the cartoon as well as a number of objects in the cartoon that we're going to want to describe. So we'll start off with probably the most recognizable figure in the cartoon, and that would be this individual right here. Now, keep in mind question 1 just asked for you to describe in general terms. So most of you should be able to figure out by the way the cartoonist has drawn this figure that this is President Obama. It's written on his trunks. It says Cool Hand Barack. The distinguishing feature of exaggerated ears as well as the facial features. All of you should have been able to come to the conclusion that's President Obama, which is great. That's who the boxer symbolizes. But for the purpose of answering question 1, we just want to label the people and objects in the cartoon in general terms. So we're going to go back to our cartoon, and what I decided to label that boxer, or Barack Obama right there, I decided to describe him as man with large ears. You could say smaller boxer, you can say a man with boxing gloves on the left side. All those would be appropriate. So we head back to the cartoon and see what other objects or people are located in the cartoon that we need to describe. And so we'll head over to the bigger boxer. And once again, thinking ahead a little bit, you can probably determine that the bigger boxer symbolizes the economy. It's written on his chest. He has the stars and stripes trunks. But understand, question 1, we're just speaking in general terms. So we head back to our analysis worksheet, and for that boxer, I decided to say a man with stars and stripes shorts. You could have said larger boxer, boxer on the right side of the ring. Any of those would have been appropriate. So head back to our cartoon, looking for other objects and people to describe in general terms. And so in the middle of the ring, we have this individual here. And so then we head back to our worksheet, take a look at that, and I decided to describe that individual as the announcer. Who does he symbolize? What does he symbolize, if anything? We'll get to that a little bit later on. Going back and taking a look at the cartoon itself, other objects or people that we see in the cartoon, we have this person outside here, out of the ring. And so we head back to our analysis worksheet, and I've decided to describe that person as a spectator, looking for other objects or people. That takes care of all the people. Other objects in the cartoon, well, there's 2 other objects that are noticeable. One, the microphone, and then the second being the ring, which the boxers are located in, as well as some lights up here. So you have a microphone, you have lights, you have a ring. So head back to our analysis worksheet. And there we have the microphone. We have the ring. And we have lights. Now we're going to move on to looking at question 2. It says, state the cartoonist's title or titles. So it's possible for cartoons to have more than one title. Now we take a look at our cartoon. The words that are going to make up a title, if a title exists, are typically going to be found in a couple different spots. Either below the cartoon, either above the cartoon, perhaps in a box by themselves in the cartoon, but not on an object. And in rare occasions, sometimes on the sides of a cartoon. Just keep in mind that a title will always be separate from what somebody is speaking, what they are thinking, or what is written on an object. So if we go back to our analysis worksheet, we should have been able to figure out there is no title for this cartoon. And in understanding that, you're going to need to make sure that you write NA, not applicable, put a dash. Somehow you need to signify to your teacher that you recognize there is no title to this cartoon. Let's move on to question 3. Under words, list 3 words or phrases used by the cartoonist that identify objects and or people within the cartoon. Now ideally, we would like to be able to fill in each of these 3 spots for A, for B, and C. But as we will see throughout the year, not all cartoons contain words. And if that's the case, then just like we did for the title of this cartoon, if there happens to be no words, then we would write NA, 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 and move on to question number 4. Now in the case of this cartoon, as we'll see in a little bit, we'll be able to fill in each of these 3 spaces. Now some of you may be asking, well, what if there's only one word? Then you are only responsible for putting that one word down as long as it identifies an object or person in the cartoon. Some of you might also be asking yourselves, what if there's 6 different words or phrases that identify objects or people? Once again, you're only responsible for filling in each of the 3 spaces here if applicable. So go ahead and take a look at our cartoon. And you should be able to notice there's quite a few words that are used by the cartoonist, either written on objects or being spoken by people in the cartoon. And we'll start down here with the name of the cartoonist as well as where this person works at, and that doesn't identify any specific object or person in the cartoon, so that's not going to be one of our options that we're going to be able to choose from. Go ahead and take a look at the words that are written on President Obama's shorts here. It says "Cool Hand Barack." Those words clearly identify this person, so that's a possibility. Move to the right, "Get ready to grumble." Those words do not identify any specific person or object in the cartoon. We'll notice here these words written "Kid Economy" on the larger boxer's chest. They clearly identify this person in the cartoon. And then we have this set of words up here being spoken by President Obama. "What do you mean he's my biggest opponent? Where's Mitt?" Now from this phrase you could take out just simply the pronoun he's in reference to Kid Economy, or you can take the phrase "he's my biggest opponent" in reference to Kid Economy. Both identify this person. Go ahead and head back to our cartoon analysis worksheet. And we'll take a look at the words that I filled in here. So we have "Cool Hand Barack," which clearly identifies the words that are written on President Obama. "Kid Economy," that are clearly identifying that person. And then finally, we have "Biggest Opponent," that also identifies the large boxer in the ring. You could shorten and say "biggest," you could shorten "Cool Hand Barack" and say "Barack." As long as the words are identifying a specific object or person in the cartoon, you can use those words. So moving on. Under words, question number 4, record any important dates or numbers that appear in the cartoon. Typically, cartoons are not going to include dates or numbers, but that is why this question is often missed, because it's easy to look past cartoons when they do have dates and numbers that people often forget to fill in this portion of the worksheet. So we take a look at our cartoon and we look around and see if there's any important dates or numbers. Does anybody mention Christmas or Halloween or 9/11 or December 7th? And we take a look around and we don't see any important dates or numbers. Now some of you may say, well, I do see a date down there, 2011, and that's correct, but that is when the cartoon was drawn, and we're not going to be concerned about the year in which the cartoon was drawn. So we're looking for numbers, dates that are part of the cartoon that help explain the message of the cartoon. So we head back to our worksheet, and once again, there are no numbers or dates, so we're just going to put NA or put a dash or write out "not applicable" or write in the words "no numbers and dates." Somehow you need to let your teacher know, once again, that you recognize that there are no dates or numbers. Now let's move on to question number 5 under visuals. And it says, which of the objects or people from the list above are symbols used by the cartoonist? Now obviously this question is referencing question number 1, the list that we've created. So we have a list of objects and people, beginning with man with large ears, man with stars and stripes shorts, announcer, spectator, microphone, ring, lights. Now what we need to start to do is think about which of these objects, which of these people are going to be symbols represented in the cartoon. And so we just start with letter A, and we begin to ask ourselves, the man with the large ears, we ask ourselves one very important question. Do we think he symbolizes something? If need be, we take a look back at the cartoon, man with the large ears. Well, clearly he does symbolize something because it's written right on his trunks here. Now, even if it wasn't written on his trunks, just the way the cartoonist has drawn President Obama, you should be able to figure out that he does symbolize President Obama. So we go back to our analysis worksheet, and these letters between 1 and 5 do not need to match up, but between number 5 and 6 will need to match up, and you'll see here shortly why that's the case. So all we're going to do is take exactly what we wrote in number 1 and bring it down here. So we believe the man with the large ears symbolizes something. Alright, so then we move down our list. Man with stars and striped shorts. Do we believe he symbolizes something? And once again, the answer is yes. Because, once again, it's clearly written on his chest what he symbolizes. So, man with stars and stripes, shorts. We move down our list. The announcer. Do we believe the announcer in the cartoon symbolizes somebody or something? And in the case of this cartoon, I don't believe he symbolizes anybody. Now we move on to the spectator, and we ask ourselves an important question once again. Do we believe the spectator symbolizes some person, some idea, something? And we take a look back at our cartoon, the spectator down there, and I've decided I believe the spectator does symbolize somebody. And so I'm going to then write in exactly what I wrote up there, spectator. And then I move on to letter E, microphone. And do I believe the microphone symbolizes something? And I've decided no, I don't believe it symbolizes anything in this cartoon. Move on to letter F up here, the ring. Do I believe the ring symbolizes something? And I've decided yes, that the ring does symbolize something. So we're going to transfer ring down there. And finally, the lights. You need to ask yourself, do the lights symbolize something? And I do not believe the lights symbolize anything. So once again, you're going to, for question number 5, take a look at the list you've created. Ask yourselves that very important question. Whatever you've written down here, do you believe it symbolizes something? If the answer is yes, you would just transfer those exact words down to number 5. If the answer is no, then you leave it where it's at. Keep in mind, the letters do not need to match up. You'll notice that spectator and number 1 and spectator and number 5 do not match up, and ring and number 1 and ring and number 5 do not match up with those letters. That's not important. Moving down to number 6, though, what do you think each of the cartoonist symbols listed above represent? So now that we've decided that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 objects and or people that symbolize something, now we need to figure out what they symbolize. So as we've talked about before, the man with the large ears is President Obama. So these letters do need to match up. A, man with large ears, A, President Obama. We look at our list again, and number 5, man with stars and striped shorts. And once again, we've talked about what he symbolizes. And we just refer back to the cartoon. It's clearly written on his chest. Kid economy, U.S. economy, any of those would work. So there we go. Now let's take a look at the spectator. So we ask ourselves, who does the spectator in the cartoon symbolize? And this is probably one of the more difficult pieces of symbolism in the cartoon to figure out. And with time, it'll become easier and easier to recognize these more subtle forms of symbolism. But I believe the spectator in this cartoon symbolizes the American voters. So those people who will be voting in the 2012 presidential election. And then finally, the ring. And once again, nothing written on the ring, which makes it a little bit harder to figure out the symbolism, but with time I think you'll be able to figure out the ring symbolizes the United States, the country itself. So you notice number 5 and number 6, A's match up, B's match up, C's match up, D's match up. Man with large ears is President Obama. Man with stars and striped shorts is U.S. economy. Both of those are written on those people. Easy to see that symbolism. C, spectator, American voters. Some more subtle symbolism there. And then finally, D, ring, the United States. Once again, not very clear cut, something that you have to figure out by looking at the cartoon as a whole. Now we'll move on and address question number 7. Once again, recognizing that question number 7 appears under the words column. Which words or phrase used by the cartoonist appear to be the most significant? Explain why you believe it is the most significant. Go ahead and take a look at our cartoon again. And once again, notice that there are many words used by the cartoonist. There is no title. There's no date or number. If there was, you could choose the word or the phrase that's used for the title or some sort of significant date or number. In the case of this cartoon, we can't choose from any of those. We have a number of possibilities. I could see choosing Kid Economy, Cool Hand Barack, Biggest Opponent, perhaps even Where's Mitt in reference to a possible Republican nominee Mitt Romney in the 2012 election. So we'll go back. Now the word or phrase that I've decided to use would be my biggest opponent. Once again, feel free to choose any word, any phrase used by the cartoonist, whether it's in the cartoon itself, part of the title, any of that's appropriate. You just need to make sure you are explaining why you chose the word or phrase, or perhaps even a date or number. So why is it the most important? Why do you think it was? And I put, it is the biggest obstacle facing President Obama's re-election chances. Eventually, at some point during the year, as we continue to get more and more practice with working with the cartoon analysis worksheet and analyzing editorial cartoons, you'll be able to process much of steps 1 through 7 in your head in a matter of seconds. It's just going to take practice. It's going to take understanding the symbolism, understanding the background information connected to the cartoons. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the cartoonist message. Once again, understanding that this is the cartoonist's opinion. It is very clear cut. There is no gray area. It's not iffy. It's not that the cartoonist believes one way but also another. That it should be a clearly stated, clearly seen message. And that's what we've been working through with steps 1 through 7. And you can see on screen it says President Obama would much rather face a flawed political opponent in the 2012 presidential election, such as potential Republican nominee Mitt Romney. Unfortunately for the president, though, he will be faced with a much bigger challenge of trying to defeat the troublesome U.S. economy. This is a fight that the president is unlikely to win, and it will cost him re-election in 2012. Once again, being specific with the message, incorporating the symbolism, the words that are in the cartoon, and explaining clearly the opinion, the message of the cartoonist. Now that we have the message of the cartoon, we'll be able to address questions 9, 10, and 11. Taking a look at question 9, list a special interest group from the time period of the cartoon that would either agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message and why. A couple things to point out here before we take a look at the responses that I put down. One would be, what is a special interest group? And this is something that gives people difficulty at times. Really, quite simply, you just need to think of it as any group of people. So 2 or more people that support some cause, some issue, or against some cause or some issue. It could be a specific political party, such as the Democratic Party, or the Republican Party would agree or disagree. It could be a group of Americans, such as automobile workers, those individuals that work on Wall Street, could be high school teachers. So there's a variety of different groups that you can choose from. What is never acceptable would be an individual. So putting down President Obama's name wouldn't be acceptable for this answer, or to say all Americans, because that's too broad when you're talking about 365 million Americans agreeing or disagreeing on something. That's just not possible. So we want to narrow it down to specific groups. And taking a look at the group that I chose here, we have unemployed Americans. Once again, I didn't say all Americans, but unemployed Americans, and there's a variety of other groups you could choose from, would agree. They would agree with the cartoonist's message. And why would they agree? Well, they would agree with the cartoon's message that if President Obama can't convince the American people that the economy is headed in the right direction, that he will lose his re-election bid in 2012. And clearly that is a group of Americans that are impacted by the economy. Just keep in mind that you are coming up with a group that would agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message. Now we move on to question 10. Now we're looking at you. Explain whether you would agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message. Now looking at question 10, now we're no longer looking at a group of people, we're looking at you as an individual, and just a simple question of whether you would agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message, and then explain why you would agree or disagree with it. And what I put down, I would agree that the stagnant American economy is proven to be a greater political threat to the president's re-election chances than any possible Republican nominees by themselves might present. You can feel free to disagree with the message of the cartoon. You just need to be able to support it. Once again, you are basing it off of the cartoonist's message. Now that we've addressed the cartoonist's opinion, the cartoonist's message, and we've used that to identify a specific group of people that would agree or disagree, and then explaining why that group would agree or disagree with the cartoon, we were able to then move on and provide our own opinion on whether we agree or disagree with the cartoonist's message, always understanding that it's getting back to the cartoonist's message. So that's why it's very important that we have a specific message and we understand what that cartoonist message is. We'll be able to then move to question 11, which represents what this thematic approach is all about that we'll be looking at throughout the year, and more importantly, the essential questions that tie the themes together, the overall important questions that you need to be able to answer with knowledge that you already have and knowledge that you're going to be able to acquire throughout the theme. Understanding that there is never a wrong answer as long as you can support your answer with credible information. We'll go ahead now and take a look at the essential question that I decided to match the cartoon with, and that would be essential question number 4. What is the economic and social responsibility of government? More specifically focusing in on the economic responsibility of government. Understand that you may use multiple essential questions here, that the essential question you may choose to use may be different than mine. As you can explain the connection, then feel free to use any of the essential questions from the theme that you feel fit with the cartoon that we're looking at. Now, the connection that I made to essential question number 4, what is the economic and social responsibility of government? I said the cartoonist believes that the U.S. government has a role to play in solving the slow economic growth taking place in the American economy, but those in charge of the country seem to be overmatched by their opponent. In review, we have accomplished a number of things today. We have gone through and looked at what an editorial cartoon is, what you need to do to analyze and comprehend an editorial cartoon. We've taken a look at a specific editorial cartoon. We've used that information then to apply it to our step-by-step editorial cartoon worksheets, both the visual and word columns 1 through 7. We've then taken that basic information and applied it to question number 8, explaining the message, the opinion of the cartoonist, which has then helped us address questions 9, 10, and 11, with question 11's focus being on the essential question, or choosing an essential question or questions from the theme and being able to explain how it fits. And that concludes this lesson about editorial cartoons.